Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you, John. Thank you all for being here. I know that there are other things that are happening around us, and they're important things, and your time is important, and your spirit is important, and it's important that you be involved. So it means all the more to me that on the one day I can manage to be here as I travel about, that you're taking some of your valuable time away from important things to be here. Usually I would be operating with both hands, and I'll manage. I've developed over the years how to do that even with a handheld mic, and I'm told technologically this is likely to cause less problems. And this is not an easy room. Usually I like to have eye contact. My students know that I'm capable of looking into the eyes and seeing and understanding what's going on inside the mind, and that's something you can do even in a large group if you've been doing this as long as I've been doing it. Because if you imagine yourself looking at a picture, so take a Rembrandt, something that uses chiaroscuro, and if you were to walk into a museum, you see a Rembrandt, and there's a little chip where some vandal has chipped away the paint, and there's a little speck of white. Bing, you would see that more than anything else that's in the picture. Your eyes would go right to that. So if I could see all of your eyes, and I can't, unfortunately, but if those that I can, the moment you begin to wander, you see, I can pick that up. And what I'll do is gently, I won't say you're wandering, no, but I'll come over and we'll try to get a little adrenaline going, and we'll at least make contact. So help me, if you would, over these next minutes. I'm going to try to tell you, I'm going to try to weave together some themes here that I think might be helpful, and in the general domain of leadership. So, first of all, it's okay if you want to, just between us, not to be put out into the world of social media. If you want to put on your cell phones, not to communicate with each other or friends that aren't here, or to check the latest whatevers, but to tape this accent. Okay, so this is a Brooklyn accent. So there's a place called Brooklyn, which is part of New York City. Now, it's interesting. A lot of students from this school that go out of the country to study go to Scotland to study, to Edinburgh. And about a year ago, I was asked to give a speech and receive an honor at the University of Edinburgh. And I love the way the Scots speak. They have that, and when they give you an honor, European universities do honors well. The Americans, they kind of, pull you up on stage, they give you a certificate and you leave. But the Europeans, they have music and ceremony and candles, and people dress up specially. And in Edinburgh, this is a 500-year-old university, so older than any university in the United States. They have this person get up, and in the mellifluous tones, of the poet Robert Burns, they talk about your achievements and so forth in this beautiful Scotch accent, and then I get up with this, so I just said talk, as if it were T-A-W-K. And if I'm not drinking Diet Pepsi or Coke, I'm drinking coffee, C-A-W-F-F-E-E. This is a disappearing accent, however, because when I got up, I told the Scots to turn on their phones so that they could hear English spoken the correct way. And some of them actually did. And a week later, I was being given an award out in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is one of the 5 boroughs of New York. Everybody outside of New York thinks of New York as Manhattan, but it's actually a tiny little privileged enclave. When you get out to Brooklyn, you meet the real people. And you encounter those that have calluses on their hands because they actually build things and work at things. And they know how to make things operate, or grow, or give birth. So I'm out in Brooklyn at a place called Coney Island. You could look that up, Coney Island, C-O-N-E-Y Island. It's not actually an island, but it's a great cultural kind of center of this place where I grew up. And I thought that I would go there and be understood without a translator. Now, for you all, English is maybe a second or third or even fourth language for some of you. To work through an accent like this is hard. What did he say? To work through an accent like this is hard. I thought in Brooklyn I wouldn't need a simultaneous translator, and I got out there and it turned out that only about 20% of the people in the room, there were 1,000 people in the room, only about 20% of them spoke like me. That Brooklyn, where I was born and where I grew up and where I shaped my view of the world, now a Central European accent, a Caribbean island accent, a South Asian accent is the dominant motif. Only about 1 in 5 people say coffee with a W, or talk with a W, or pronounce the love of my life, my wife's name, which is spelled L-I-S-A, as if it was spelled L-I-S-E-R, Lisa. So there in Brooklyn, there'd already occurred a transformation that was foreshadowed for me when I was your age. So I'm going to kind of talk in several parts here. And I'm going to try to leave time in the end of what we have allotted for me to, if you have an irresistible urge, take a question from you, or more likely, since you're probably a little more timid than you should be, I'll just say, what's your name? Jakob. What's on your mind? Or, worse yet, Jakob, what did you think about this? The viewpoint I offered when I talked about, and then you'll have to remember. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I want to start by talking about a person, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about a school, NYU, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about a view of the world that comes from that. And then I'm going to ask you to connect those 3 things to your school and your life. So as I'm going through, I'd like you to begin the process of thinking, how does what he's saying now, which seems to be so irrelevant, how does it connect to the people in this room and this school and what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go? Okay? So, I'm going to start by talking about a person. And that person's name is Charlie. Charlie. Not Charlie from Paris. That's the Charlie that, in a very interesting way, connects to the Charlie I'm about to describe to you. So, this is my first time in Bratislava, but what's your name?
Hania.
Do they have Kentucky Fried Chicken here?
Yes.
Do you know KFC? Kentucky Fried Chicken? Okay, so I'm going to try to conjure up for you a vision of this man Charlie. So Charlie, do you know on the Kentucky Fried Chicken box there's a picture of a man, I don't know if they tell you his name here or around the world, but in the United States he's known as Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Can you get that face? Okay, is that familiar enough to you? So that's the way this guy Charlie's a real person. Charlie's a person that I met when I was younger than most of you. Okay, I met him for the first time when I was a freshman in high school. And I was 12 years old. And I walked into this school, and you noticed this person because he looked just like Colonel Sanders. You know, with the white hair and the white beard and big. Even though he was only about 30 years old, he had prematurely white hair. And someone once said about Charlie that he had the body of Orson Welles. Now, you don't know who Orson Welles is, but Orson Welles was a big American actor. The voice of James Earl Jones. Now, you may not know that name, even though he's still a great actor, but you heard his voice. It's a deep voice. So in the body of Orson Welles, the voice of James Earl Jones, and the soul of St. Francis of Assisi. Now, St. Francis of Assisi is the Christian Catholic saint from which Pope Francis took his name. A lover of the poor, a lover of life, a lover of animals, a person who directed himself otherwise. And Charlie was a combination of Orson Welles, James Earl Jones, and Francis of Assisi, but taken to a whole different level. And he was a teacher. I'll tell you right now, he died about 6 years ago now. But to this day, I've never met a teacher as great as Charlie. And he changed my life. And he's the reason Peter and I met. Because I've not had an original idea about education. I've just been, since the day I met him, which is decades before you were born. Okay, I met him for the first time in 1955. Right, so that's over 60 years ago I met this guy. And I met him, they had decided that they were going to take 12 of us. But they picked 12 of us. They realized they had a dynamo in this teacher. They didn't quite understand him. That they were the people that were running a school that had very much the same spirit as this school in terms of its intellectual vigor. In terms of its standards. But it was a school that was very, very much captured in a closed world. It was a world where you looked at life through the one little window you were given. And your scope on the world. First of all, you were told that was the only way to look at the world. That was the only way to look at the world. There was only one right way to look at the world. Maybe there are many windows in the house, but there's only one window you should use. All the other windows, you never went near them. There's one window you should use, and you should look out. Whatever's outside that window, that's the world. So if there's no tree outside that window, there's no tree in the world. If there's no animal outside the window, there's no animal in the world. You just look out through the one window you're given. And it was very close. This brook, we were basically, the world for us, going to Manhattan was a big deal. Even though it was only 15 minutes away. It was as far away as China is from where we are right now. It is psychological. We called it going to the city. We were not in the city, even though technically we were in the city. And they took 12 of us, and they put on our schedule. We were not allowed to pick our classes. So 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. And it turned out for our freshman, our sophomore, our junior, and our senior year, all 4 years of high school, we had a course that they just called Charlie. Because they didn't know how to call what he was going to do. They had no idea what he was going to do. And he walked into class, and we were, let's just constitute this the class here, okay? And I'm deliberately constituting this arc, you know, these 7 studly guys here, okay? The 7 right there, but there are 12 of us. No, I'm taking this arc, okay? Because we were an all-boys high school. And this imposing figure, this Orson Welles, Colonel Sanders figure with the James Earl Jones voice, walks in and he looks at us. These were his first words. Now back then, this is 1955, remember, you were not allowed to even say the word. You could only spell the word, S-E-X. There was no such thing as S-E-X education. Nobody talked about SEX. Okay, we somehow, as the rage of puberty raced through our systems, realized that there was a reality to this, but we didn't know what it was. And we knew that in some of the other schools in town, there was this thing called SEX education. And here we got this course, Charlie, and who knew what it was? And he walked in, and the first thing, jumped into the water, and they said the magic words, trained by the C.S. Lewis School, that you will hear the same way I did. They said, no passengers ever do. Well, what's the implication? Somebody does, just not passengers. And I said, who does? Well, the crew, the first trip, we make them jump in. But we put a rope on them to prevent against hypothermia. So I said, boys, attach the rope. The first passage is going in because this is legal and moral. We're going to try it once. Right? And that leads to picture number 2, which is why you go to the Grand Canyon. In the United States, you cannot, if you ever get to North America, you cannot waste your time on going to any place if you can't also get to the Grand Canyon. If you get to North America and you can only go one place, go to the Grand Canyon. Forget New York, forget Las Vegas, forget San Francisco, go to the Grand Canyon. And when I say go to the Grand Canyon, don't go to the Grand Canyon and stand at the top like the 4 million tourists that show up and peer down, because what you're seeing is not even the bottom. You'll be, oh, now I understand why you wanted to become the Grand Canyon. I've never, because there's nothing in the world like the Grand Canyon. A 2 billion year old geological clock that reminds you simultaneously how insignificant you are. You, not even bug on my forehead. Because you're so tiny and pusillanimous compared to a 2 billion year old. You know, you start walking down the trail to the bottom. That's what you start doing. And you realize that 100 steps down the trail, you're outside of recorded history. And you still have 10 miles to go. And you work yourself down that trail to the river, and you spend at least 3 days, preferably 11, on the river. Because once you start, okay, you're either down there for 3 days and you walk around a little bit in roughly the same place, but you're seeing it, or you get under the river like this, or with a group in a raft, and you go down the whole 300 miles, because there's no way of getting out. Once that boat goes off, you're 11 days and, you know, can't cry for mama, or any of that stuff. And you'll make it down. And you'll sleep on the beach with the scorpions running around, and you'll survive, and you'll be wonderful, and you'll understand that yes, I'm insignificant, pusillanimous, but Kenyon, I can love! I can think! That's what I can do that makes my humanity special. So, every 4 years, the whole family goes down and does the 11 days. This is my oldest granddaughter on her first day in the canyon. Okay, and no one that has ever gone has come out and said my life is not transformed. So, finally, I just thought of these pictures a few minutes ago. They're all on my iPhone. And they said, do you have any visual aids? I said, no. And then I said, well, wait a minute, let's throw up a couple. So you see, here are the 3 grandchildren. Okay, all great results of science, by the way. They would not exist were it not the science. And I'm not talking about the simple biology to which Charlie was referring. I'm talking about in vitro fertilization, the miracle of bringing life into the world. So all 3 of my granddaughters and my daughter are all in vitro children. Okay, but look at the zest for life as they encounter the infinitude of the ocean and the infinitude of the sand. You have to return to that constantly, because that's where the ineffable, I-N-E-F-F-A-B-L-E, the ineffable, that which can't be put into words, the thing we know to be true which can't be put into words, like love, like the existence of transcendence beyond life, like the important things that drive us to be altruistic and good. That's the core message of stretching yourself so that you see creation not just through that one window you're given, but through the many windows that have been given, that you play as many octaves of the piano as possible. It's the message of Charlie. It's what we're trying to do at NYU, and
it all connects to the C.S. Lewis School by
us, by all the people in this community, and by all the windows that we can look through and that we should look through in our lives.
well done. It all produces very concretely for us in this moment today about how we feel about the other. Is the other, is the person, I can think of a differentiation from every single human being in this room. None of us is the same in every respect. And we human beings are great at differentiating people from us in ways that define a group for us, and then there's the other. And we're always better than they are. And we learn to put them down and to hate them. And sometimes we fight them and kill them. All over nothing. All over nothing. Something somebody made up at some point. So do we see the other as something that plays that role in our lives to help us feel better? Or do we see the other as a great gift that gives us other windows that we can use to look at ourselves and to understand creation? I think the latter view is what Charlie tried to teach. I think it's what we're trying to do at NYU. I think it's what you're trying to do here. And I applaud your faculty and everybody associated with the school and you in the room for understanding that so quickly. Thank you very, very much.
John, thank you very much for widening our space a little bit. Thank you for Charlie, and thank you for Grand Canyon. And we have a small gift for you. First of all, we have this book. We wanted to watch with you Bratislava, but today probably will be not possible. We will have a coffee and this UFO bridge, but probably you will not see anything. So here are the photos of Bratislava. And the second gift was made by our students, Project 20. It's about quite significant milestone of our history, about Velvet Revolution. And our students did some interviews with those guys who were leaders in this process. So it was done by our students. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much.